They've given us the high sign.
It's
We
for-
can begin.
It's 4 o'clock, so by the time
That
it's done,
and
it's
Jason
time for
was going to
drinks.
be late, it was on time. So we will call to order the June 3rd meeting of the Community Preservation Committee. Our first order of business is to review and approve the minutes from our May meeting. Has everyone had an opportunity to take a look? Are there any comments, questions, or corrections? All right, would anybody like to make a motion to approve the minutes from May?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any
Abstention?
abstentions?
Abstention.
One abstention. Two abstentions.
Two?
Two abstentions. All right, next is review and sign bills. Do we have any bills, Mr. McGoldrick?
No bills this evening.
Then we will skip that. Look at that, we're already at number 4. So our first action item, and I believe that's why we have some folks sitting here in front of us, is to vote to appoint 2 representatives to the Affordable Housing Trust Community Preservation Committee Working Group for the purposes of developing a coordinated strategy. Do you folks have some remarks you'd like to share with us?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you, the committee, for having us here. My name is Hector Cruz. I am the chair, and I'm here with.
Martha Gannon, I'm the vice chair.
And what we're asking for is for the committee to appoint 2 representatives to work with the Affordable Housing Trust Committee and to formulate a plan which would help procure the 10% or whatever percentage we can get allocated to the Affordable Housing Trust for future housing development deals that are in the pipeline, or that could be in the pipeline. And I know that it is an opportunity, one, to establish that relationship and work together as 2 committees with one mission, which we both have, which is looking for affordable housing and also elderly and disabled housing, and have the resources available for when an opportunity presents itself.
So, folks, are there any volunteers? Does anyone like to be volunteered? Kathy, would you like to be a
I think it's logical that someone from the Housing Authority is on this work group. I will say up front that I have said this before, I am opposed to allocating that 10% directly to Affordable Housing Trust. But if there's a medium, we can do that so both parties have control and we can make that part of our work group, then I'm happy to serve. But if the ultimate objective is just to get 10% of the money, then I am not your person.
Yep.
Can I add a comment here? Looking at the coalition, I didn't get the idea that we could do that. It looks like, to me, that you have to have a project in mind,
Can allocate.
no?
Nope.
So with the funding agreement.
Yeah, so many communities do fund either the full 10% or a portion of that percentage, each allocation round to the Affordable Housing Trust. When that money is allocated, it does have to be held by the trust in a separate account to be accounted for, and it is still beholden to all of the regulatory strings that any CPC money would be beholden to. But it transfers that money to the trust, and essentially, when a project comes along, they then work through the logistics of bringing that to town meeting. But the money's already been allocated, so it makes them being a little bit more nimble and able to spend that money that's been allocated at town meeting, but they would still provide the project. So from our discussion previously, we had talked about what those logistics look like and how that would work with the money being allocated from town meeting, but no specific projects. And I think some of the general ideas would be that the trust would still come forward, present the eligibility application and the funding application to the committee for their review and recommendations. But it would provide that opportunity. And then part of what this working group is, I think the major lift of this working group would be to work out that funding agreement. So later on the agenda, we'll be reviewing and hopefully issuing our standard funding agreements. Certainly for the logistics of this relationship, I think would want to consider more contingencies and kind of, questions in that. And we'll be modeling off of, other communities. We can see what they do in terms of the funding between the other towns, but to formulate that funding agreement.
Okay, follow-up question. If we vote to pass over the 10% funding to the Affordable Housing Trust, does that have to go to town meeting before it gets to them?
So I think that would be something that would be worked out in the funding agreement. So ultimately, town meeting would fund the allocation of the money to the trust. I think that would be something in terms of the funding agreement. Do we leave that at the discretion of the committee to approve specific projects thereafter? Do those projects somehow have to go to town meeting? But that would essentially defeat the purpose of what we're doing here. But we can figure out some kind of a, perhaps there's a report or something that's submitted to town meeting to track that and provide that transparency. But we can work through those logistics with this working group more nimbly than in open session. So.
Just to play devil's advocate, one question I would have is if we were to allocate that money annually, but the Affordable Housing Trust still has to present a project and have that project approved by town meeting,
No.
what's the
don't.
difference of where the money is sitting?
And so that would be, so the money, the town meeting vote would allocate the money. They would still come to CPC and, in terms of the funding agreement and the eligibility, any kind of restrictions that the committee and the trust can agree to in terms of where that goes from there, if there's any additional steps that need to be taken. But largely the intent is to have that money allocated to the trust so that they can act on it as deals and as opportunities arise, rather than going all the way to town meeting. But we can figure out some kind of a potential.
I'm just trying to figure out how that money would be more liquid,
Deb,
the agreement.
wait, you had your hand up, go ahead.
Well, actually, I wanted just to get out there that I'd like to be the second representative.
Oh, bravo.
There you go. If somebody else wants to jump in as well.
Is there anyone else that's interested?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. At the risk of getting in trouble, I think it's difficult, Kathy, for you to be on a working group, try to figure out how to do it, saying already that you don't want to do it. So,
Well, no, I mean, just to be clear, I am opposed just to blanket moving 10% over because they have money that they haven't spent, so why give more money? If we can put plans towards projects, that's what I'd like to work on, developing projects, rather than focus on just getting money from one body to another. So it depends what the focus is. If the focus is just to get this group to agree to allocate 10% every year, you don't need me. If your focus is to come up with plans where we can spend our money, I'd like to be a part of that. So I'm not sure what your goal is, which is why I bring that up.
what is the goal?
So the goal, I think, is we're not going to be identifying specific projects that may be in the future. But the working group for now, I think the major goal that we're trying to achieve is to come up with the logistics, that funding agreement. What is that going to look like in terms of, I think, directly addressing that concern of, rather than just allocating money and not having a clarity of how that money is spent, we're actually going to put that in a funding agreement and specifically spell out each of those provisions of how that process plays out for that use of money to ensure that we are,
So that
doing the appropriate checks. and-
sounds as if you're suggesting that the working group that it's already a done deal, that CPC has, if the only intent of, I read coordinated strategy as figuring out if this is possible and how, and presenting options to CPC. Because it's not really a strategy or working group if it's a foregone conclusion of what the outcome will be.
I think
We
it's,
have, as a body, this body has not yet voted whether or not, yes, we want to make sure we do this, and then how do we do it? We're still trying to figure out if we want to
I-
or not.
I think I was not involved in this, so I don't know what everybody was thinking, but from what, the little bit I heard about it, I thought it was to see if there was a way to do the transfer every year. That was, my understanding was that's what this group was trying to do, to see if it
To
could
see
be.
if
wo-
it's feasible
To see if,
and
it-
if there's
well, to see if it could be worked out where people could agree on it. Because if the CPC is saying, we don't want to do this, there's no point in having a committee to study it. There's no point. So, if the CPC doesn't think they want to go this way, then fine. But if people are inclined not to go that way, then why are we going to have a committee to try to come up with a way to make it happen?
Or is the committee exploring how it could possibly happen? What makes all parties comfortable and achieves the goals?
Now, I think it's going to be an exercise
So I
in
think
futility.
Just to make it clear, this would be a working group, so with 2 members from each committee, there's no authority to take any action. So what the 2 representatives would be doing is trying to formulate, what is that gonna look like, and would then bring those recommendations or those ideas back to both the committee and the trust in open session to discuss again and either adopt or send back to the working group with comment to say, no, we need to do this. And ultimately, if the trust and the committee cannot reach an agreement, then, we would end the working group. But if we're able to find that path forward with the working group, it allows us to have those discussions and to develop those ideas and documents without having to come to open session and do that. But we would then bring any of those recommendations to the committee to formally adopt.
I absolutely think a working group makes sense as long as it's not an absolute foregone conclusion that exactly what will happen, because like you said, working through it and figuring out how can we do it or not do it.
Northborough has a program where they do this effectively, so, which Melanie has done some research on. But again, it kind of depends what the objective is of this work group. It's just,
So,
set-
I just like that. I mean, both committees have the same goal. We want to hit the 10%. We want affordable housing. We want elderly, disabled housing. And how do we get there? And we have $1 million in the account, but that's not, that's only going to take you so far. When an opportunity presents itself, we have to be ready. And we have to figure out what this working group and the committee, how can we both work together to achieve that? And timing is everything, right? When they come and they present, they say, we have a deal, we need X. I can't, or the committee can't sit there and wait and go through the process for another year. They'll move on. So I think that working together, 2 members from each committee, figure out a way what this would look like, and is it 10%, is it 7%, 5%, whatever it is, we don't know what it is because we haven't got there yet. But I think the first thing we have to do is sit down and put something together.
John?
I have 2 questions, I'll ask them both. First of all, besides the Affordable Housing Trust, who else is capable, what other organization is capable of getting that 10%?
Any nonprofit, any nonprofit that does housing. Habitat for Humanity can apply for that.
All right, so there are other people beside, the point is, if we automatically give them all the money, then nobody else has got any money available. We, in a sense, and it leads to my second question, it says coordinating a strategy. I guess if we just vote that they get the 10%, that's not a strategy. That's just a decision that we've made to do or not do something. So I guess from a strategy means, I guess in my mind, when I read this, it's like, are we gonna put something together as to what direction we wanna go in, what kind of housing we wanna look at, where we wanna look at it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, as opposed to what we've been talking about is an up and down vote.
It's my understanding this is put on the agenda in that you want to begin, the first step is to talk about if there is a possibility of having regular funding from CPC. and the two members of each committee would discuss and see if it is feasible, if there's a way that we all can agree that it's comfortable, or if we, again, just reiterate shared goals and not act on it at this time. But the intent is that these 4 individuals will discuss that instead of, and really get into it and try to hammer it out instead of us taking a vote. But instead, what we would vote on tonight is to choose 2 of us to work with 2 members of the Affordable Housing Trust to see if they come up with something that then we either say yes or no about. Yes.
How often will we be getting reports from the committee? Is there any plan, like, to be able to have some input as they strategize? Because I have a couple concerns about funding other projects, but there's no sense bringing it up now if we're not having a strategy session, you know?
So the working
So can
group
they do
wouldn't be
reporting?
providing like recommendations on projects at this time, so I think, we can certainly, that would be the appointees that are designated could give, if we want a monthly report, but I would just recommend that when they have something, developed enough for the committee to act on, they would just bring that as a proposal
Okay,
to the
so if we
committee.
had concerns, we could ask the representatives to take it back to the committee, I would imagine.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And we
But-
can
To
certainly
the
ask
working
that
group.
you
Yep.
get on it and let us know what you think.
Okay, just so everybody understands how the Housing Trust is set up. The Housing Trust is a separate legal entity. Once they get the money, they can act on it. If they take money ahead of time from, like, say it with 10%, whatever the number is, every year, they have to report back on what they're doing, with what they did with the money, or didn't do with the money, it could still be sitting in an account. They don't have to come back to the CPC to spend it. Once they have it, they have it. That's the whole point of it. They can borrow money on their own authority. We changed that. Well, when I was on the board, we changed it. Now I'm not on the board, but the board changed that. So if they want to borrow money, they have to go back to the selectmen and say, we want to borrow money, and explain the program. But other than that, they want to go out and spend that $1 million tomorrow. They can do that right now under their own legal authority.
Question? Yes. It seems that this will bypass town meeting, but what other supervision by the town is there?
So it wouldn't bypass town meeting, so town meeting would still be taking their regular vote, just like, so when we do the allocations, which Article 33 this year does all the allocations, the 10%, this would break out a separate line item to say this amount to the affordable housing account, and then this amount, whatever percentage, to the Affordable Housing Trust.
Okay, well, other than that, though, beyond that, when they actually start doing construction and have a project, there's got to be some other
So-
town.
So that would be dictated by the funding agreement that this working group, that's the goal of this working group, is to develop that, of what is the process after town meeting, if this works, and town meeting also allocates funding to the trust, how is that going to be managed? And that would be a funding agreement, presumably between the CPC and the Affordable Housing Trust, that dictates whether, if a project comes up. I think we've discussed, and I believe the trust is generally in agreement that if a project comes up, they would then submit eligibility application and a funding agreement, go through the normal process that any other project does. They simply would hold the money already. And so if it's recommended by those, rather than going to town meeting, it would just fund the project. But again, that's why we need to work out those logistics, because we don't know what those are, and that's what the working group, that's the question.
I think you better
The
look at
working
the
group will be
law,
answering.
and you better look at the bylaw, because that is not the way the housing trust works. It's in the bylaw that they have to go back to the selectmen and borrow money. Once the town meeting gives the trust the money, the trust has the money. they have to report back to CPC what they did with it, but they don't have to ask permission to spend it. They're accountable. It's like, you don't just keep giving them money every year and then forget about it. There has to be a report every year of what they did. The whole point of Affordable Housing Trust is that it's independent and it can act. And so to try to put an agreement together that this board binds that board it defeats the whole purpose of it. So,
No, because-
and that's not the way the law, that's not the way it's written, and that's not the way our bylaw is written. So I think if you want to talk about it, I think it's fine, but you better go back and check those things, because I don't think you can do what you're saying to do. Once it, for better or for worse, once the town meeting gives the money to the trust, that's it.
Well, ultimately, that would be something that the working committee would have to confirm, deny, or work out in some manner. Voting to appoint two of our peers to a working committee doesn't commit us to making that allocation annually. It doesn't preclude us from making that allocation annually, but it does get the conversation started in a meaningful way. Are there any other people that are interested? Because actually, I like that neither of you are going to rubber stamp it, that you have questions, and it'll be, I think, a really good, meaningful conversation with your peers, the Affordable Housing Trust. Is there anyone else that wishes to, debate into arm wrestle or a thumb war?
I thought he said he did.
Oh, no, I want to know if anybody else wanted to. So
Oh.
we have two.
Not me.
As it doesn't tie us to anything, but it starts a meaningful conversation.
That's right.
Is there a motion to appoint Kathy McSweeney and Jason Molina to be our representatives to the working committee?
I so move.
Second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? They're all yours.
Can I ask one question?
Yes.
Personal information. Where does the trust get their money
I
from?
was gonna ask the same thing.
So there's four sources of income. One of them is donations. One of them is the fee in lieu from the planning board. So an inclusionary project that's proposed, the developer could propose to pay a fee in lieu of actually constructing those units. That's something the planning board has been looking at potentially retiring. That's actually the only source that's currently generating any, I wouldn't even say reliable funding. It's per project. The other source of funding was settlement agreements. That some settlement agreements have contributed to the fund. I believe those are the main sources. So if the planning board were to retire the fee in lieu, it would pretty much preclude any new funding to the trust.
But they can borrow money.
Correct.
They can borrow money, and they can partner with another nonprofit.
Yeah.
So they could be, the nonprofit could put up almost all the money, and they can partner with another nonprofit.
I mean, it's tough to borrow money when you don't have a revenue stream, I guess. But, I guess the next question I would then ask, is there a way that the town can impose a real estate transaction fee
Oh, good.
that goes in there?
Transfer taxes is already on the, in the legislature. We don't want to add more cost to that.
But just to give you an idea of the kind of money you can get on lieu of taxes, lieu of building a unit, if the Greenbrier project, 55 and over, goes through,
Yep.
they have to come up with something in the order of, well, when they're finished building it, I don't have to do it up front, but $750,000 goes to the trust.
Right. I was aware of that when he said it.
Well, that's not part of the $1 million that Tector was
No,
talking
I
about.
understand that.
But I don't know where the conversation went after I was on the trust, but we were talking about, we'd rather have the unit built. Because there's a requirement that you have to do an affordable unit, or you pay the money. And paying the money for almost 20 years did us almost nothing. So unless the trust is gonna do stuff on their own, you know, go out and actually partner and get stuff built, then it'd be better to make the developer build an affordable unit. So that's another conversation they have to have, and the planning board's gonna have to have with them.
Well, we will look forward to hearing more about the work of the Affordable Housing Trust, and Jason and Kathy will fill us in. Hopefully you guys will meet soon and get on seeing what's possible. Thank you for coming. We appreciate it.
Question?
Yes.
How soon are you thinking to schedule? Look for schedule.
I'll email out, we'll share dates, so we could just, I mean, it could be email that we can kind of coordinate.
Okay.
We want to work it out, so,
Cool.
yep.
Thanks.
And if this body would allow, like if we have other visitors, I'd like to take up the project eligibility request next, so that folks don't have to hear us. If Mr. Esposito and Ms. McCann would like to join us. This is an eligibility request. It is not the merits of the proposal, where it is no guarantee of funding. It's just a determination of this project that they are proposing. Is it eligible for CPC funding? So thank you for joining us.
Hi.
So if you'd like to tell us a little bit about the project, I'd be happy to hear.
You have the specifics for what costs are, so I don't know where to start. So we're applying for the second steps for our project for the Arrowwood Playground and Basketball Court. So right now, I believe you have the form that we sent in that shows you all the specifics of potential costs and what we're looking to do for what Mariana has set up. I'm not sure if they have like the plan.
Yes, Kathy.
I didn't see any costs. I just saw $1 million, but no breakdown. Is that added to the packet later?
Well,
Well, this is just for eligibility,
right,
right?
we don't need the budget right now,
be
although,
Oh, it was just $1
That'd be the
million.
next step.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just a minute.
Well, I can tell you, we have
Yeah.
two concepts right now, and they're both in that range. One is a little lower, like 925, and the other one is more like 1.4.
But that wasn't, we didn't get that part of it.
No, that would be the next phase.
Okay, thank you.
if we determine it eligible, we'll have a lot of questions about finance, because you are aware what our annual budget roughly is, right?
Not really. Is anyone? I can only guess.
And we can't give it all to one place either. But tell us
Well,
about
this
the
is-
project so that we can say yes or no if it's eligible.
Sorry, I think we have to make a comment about, does anybody know the monies? Yes, town meeting was presented a budget. So for those watching at home, it is very clear what the budget is. And you can look back at the annual town meeting, look at Article 33, that's the budget that we're assigned for our new fiscal year. Any clarity on that, they can go to planning and get more details about that. I think we need to leave it there.
Good point, thank you.
So, as you know, we did a townwide playground assessment. It kind of came out the way we figured, that as bad as we think some of our main playgrounds are, our neighborhood ones are in the worst condition. We rated it by different, there were a couple of different ratings. One was strictly safety, one is play value. Arrowwood actually comes up fourth on the list to be basically in replacement mode. The ones ahead of it are not much different. I think either way, I probably, in the near future, I'm gonna have to start removing equipment here and there, so this is a long road. This is a long road for us with how many playgrounds we have to replace. So we already had prior funding to design this playground. So this is where we're starting.
So are there any questions?
Yes.
You've all got the
You
eligibility?
guys are gonna regret that I came back. Yeah, I have a couple questions.
Go right ahead.
Be- well, we don't have to do it tonight, I guess, but that's a public document, right?
Yeah, it's on the website, the whole assessment is on
Well,
the website.
I'm still catching up from.
We had a
Which
meeting
website?
with Mariana about the playground assessments last month. So everything was, and she handed a physical binder, which shows all the results
Yeah, no,
of
Not
the
individually.
assessment.
the whole,
Right.
That's the-
It's on our website, because I was on it yesterday and today, and I didn't see it. All right, but that doesn't mean anything.
Not the drive,
survey is
What?
on
not the drive, it's on the
The
website.
It's on
The assessment is,
the assessment.
The assessment is on the
Okay.
drive for Arrowwood, not the whole project, but the assessment.
No, the study
for
I'm
Arrowwood.
talking about.
Yeah,
Ar-
of the 11
Arrowwood,
playgrounds.
The 5 pages of
We
Arrowwood
can get
on
you
it.
we can send you the link.
That's okay. I guess my question was before, well, the second part of the question is, well, I guess finish the first part. Could we see that before so we knew what the universe, no, I mean, talk about it as a board. So we know what the universe of projects was out there? I don't know if I have a problem with Arrowwood or not. I probably don't. But if you're saying that's fourth on the list, shouldn't we at least know what, I mean, what is the Parks Department's priorities and what is the Parks Commission's priorities? It'd be good to know that before we went down the road supporting or not supporting something. I mean, am I wrong?
We can make sure that everyone has access to the link if I actually just emailed you the link. But for tonight's decision is just whether or not moving forward with an Arrowwood playground is eligible. It doesn't mean that we will fund it. That's after, but is it eligible for CPC funding? Would anyone like to, more
Well,
questions?
I guess my opinion is, you know, if you look at the eligibility, playgrounds are an eligible item. The question then becomes, go back to, most questions are all my questions. If it's eligible, do we vote, yes, it's eligible, does that mean we're gonna go forward with it without knowing the scope?
It only
all the
means that they are
playgrounds.
invited to submit an application for funding, which we would expect that would have a great deal of detail on the budget. And there are some items that are not eligible, but also talk about if there is other funding available.
I know all of that, and that's my point. If they come back and submit a detailed list, then what about all the other playgrounds? I mean, basically, he said, if they're fourth on the list, does that mean we're still gonna let them get ahead of the other three?
That's what we'd have to decide when we get the funding application.
Do we want them to go through all that work and then turn around and
That's-
say, go to the back of the class?
I don't think that's up to us. At this point, if they've submitted an eligibility request, all we can do is say yes or no, it's eligible.
So just, if I could, being fourth on the list doesn't make it any better than the other three, than the first three. In my eyes, it's pretty much a tie, and I could pick any one of them, and we'd be in the same situation. This is the one that was submitted first through the first round, so this is how we're going. I also had one of the other ones that I submitted, evidently didn't make the agenda for tonight, but I also understand the money part of this. And it's been told to me multiple times that if we give you what you want, you're the only one that's gonna get anything, and I get that. Our alternate funding doesn't exist. We're trying for grant after grant, and Shrewsbury is just not eligible. We keep digging and digging, so we need a plan on the other side of town government to supplement this. So, I really think that my department should have most of the say on what order we're going to go in. The assessment is not etched in stone that this is how it has to go. And like I said, there are different categories on how they did the assessment. And I guess it comes down to trusting us on what we want to do first.
For example, there was one that said which playground was most visited our playground equipment was somewhat taken away. So it's hard for us to visit it as often, but I can tell you the truth, I drove by today and there are about 20 kids playing in the grass. So I really hope for this playground because our community needs it in our area. Specifically, I don't know if you guys know where Arrowwood is,
Oh, yeah.
but
I mean, if you need, I do feel if you need time to mull over the assessment, if that's what you want to do, then by all means. I mean, we have, the meeting's not coming up till in fall, so there's definitely time if you want to do that. Personally, I'd rather that you just move on it now, but.
John, did you have something?
Well, yeah, I'll just give you my personal opinion. Number one, like I said, playgrounds, in a sense, basically are eligible. So if we want to vote yes, I would vote yes. But before you do a lot, I got a million questions. I even got a fundamental question on what did we spend the $40,000 on? I got a 5-page report here. If this is what costs $40,000,
No, it's
that
bigger.
sounds.
No, that's only
It's a
for
section of it.
this, that's only the assessment pages for Arrowwood. I have a binder upstairs that's this thick.
Yeah, but the 40,000 was for Arrowwood.
The,
There was 40,000
The-
for
the
Arrowwood and
assessment-
70 for everything else.
the assessment was rolled into the 70 with a design for Edgemere, and the 40,000 was design for Arrowwood. And in the next step of this, then I would share the two concept plans that we have,
So
but I didn't feel that was necessary for eligibility.
it's not. All I'm telling you, I'm gonna throw all my questions at you.
Yeah, no, that's
Did we
fine.
spend $40,000 for this document? It's a
We didn't
five-page
spend the whole
document.
40, no, we still have some.
At this point, I have no idea how much you spent. I saw a previous document, to date spending was like $6,500, but since then, we haven't seen anything else. So,
Well, I can get
How much-
numbers, I can get numbers.
yeah, I'm not necessarily looking for answers, I'm just saying, going forward, then you're gonna spend $1 million. I guess the first thing I would ask is, how much did you spend to upgrade Dean Park Field? Did we spend $3 million for Dean Park?
No, we didn't.
Did we spend $1 million?
Nope.
Therefore,
Nope. But did we leave most of the equipment that was there? Yes. Did we put in the surfacing that we really wanted? No, we went with wood chips and rubber mats. Not something I care to do again. It has its pluses and
Then,
minuses and mostly cost.
basically, those are all questions I'm gonna have. In fact, 2 years ago, you had a quote for Arrowwood, it would cost $130,000 to put equipment in and get the park ready, so go from 130,000 to $1 million is a big jump. You know,
Well-
those are the kind of questions I got. I mean, I got a
Well,
whole
and
list of-
if I can address that, what you have there is a cost from a playground company. That's not including all the site work that needs to take place, all the ADA improvements, because we can't go in there and drop a playground in the same place that we had one and not have a way to get there, which is how they were all built before. They all met standards before. None of them meet standards now, except for Dean and the new Beal School. The surfacing is all wrong. You can't get to the equipment. Wood chips are not considered accessible in Massachusetts. In other states, they are. So I can tell you, we need to start, just rubber surfacing, we need to start at 200,000. It's $50 a square foot right now. So that's our starting point. That's before we even look at equipment and getting somebody in there and prevailing wage and everything that goes along with construction. I'm watching the market along with the designer that worked on this project, and $750 is like bare bones. I know it's hard to believe, and a couple of years ago, we probably could have built 2 playgrounds for $1 million, and it's just not the market now, so.
So I would, yes,
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it is a shock of a value, but I think the trouble is I'm having here is that I want to bring it back to the actual eligibility piece of it. And for $1 million, I'm really just working through one sentence here. The project consists of the replacement of the current playground as well as resurfacing and repainting the existing basketball court. And then there's reference to saying there's a design, but eligibility, I don't think I have enough here to actually say what's eligible. you're replacing a playground, so playground, check, but certainly not $1 million playground. Especially when we know that, PTOs have been historically fundraising to replace equipment, and they could never raise $1 million. So I'm sure there's many things going on in this project, which is, it's not visible to know what's the eligible part. I personally don't mind if we want to take time to discuss broadly what that is, because if you say I'm replacing a basketball court, the whole thing, and then doing I'm doing these pieces of elements and then with the surfacing, is that the $1 million, or is there some other component that really reaches that scale? Because I definitely I agree with John. Like, when we start talking about scale, like, oh my goodness, like, was it $350 or $450 for 3 basketball courts at Dean?
75, 375.
Okay, to be exact.
It is possible in the scope of what you're proposing that there may be some elements of that are not CPC eligible. Overall, a playground is, but, an athletic field is, but we can't fund turf. We can't fund certain types of surfaces. We can't fund sidewalks. So if there was more detail, certainly the project is broadly presented, in my opinion, is eligible. A playground, of course, yes, please carry on. But we would want to see more detail, because I think within the $1 million, there may be some costs that are not eligible for CPC funds.
From when I spoke to Mariana, because I was also sticker shocked by the price, because I did my research with all the playground assessment persons, and this is out of Kevin, this is before I knew Kevin, so really well. So what she kind of explained to me is, she brought in a person to come in and check out the land, and she was told him and said straight out, I want you to give me the highest value that you would, don't be conservative. Tell me how much would it cost to get the land prepped for this area? And she was like, even for that, she's like, yep, give me the number. And I don't know, she was like 90,000, just for the, but that was just her just saying over the top. She's like, I don't want to be too under, because then when you're too under, then you won't be able to complete the project. If it's over, it doesn't mean it's going to be $1 million. It's just a number that they just want to make sure that we can have a good base of being able to complete the project. I guess I knew that there was worry that if we asked for not enough, then we wouldn't be able to complete it, and it wouldn't be the first guinea pig playground for all the other playgrounds that we'd have to go on next. I assume after, if Arrowwood's considered, I know that there's going to be a lot of other people that are going to want their playground done too, and their school playground done. So I know that this is kind of brand new grounds, and I think that's why the cost is so high, because we're trying to be prepared and not be prepared.
Well, the schools are relying on this same process.
Right.
I do think we're relying too much on this process with the work we have to do. But it's been made clear to us from the school department that PTO money is not going to go towards playgrounds anymore. So,
my only reference point to that was that, this is why I think, CPA was campaigned on. One of the reasons why it was campaigned on, because there's a broad community need for these playgrounds, that it really shouldn't be shouldered on just, the 20 families that are paying, or 20, 30, 40, 50 families that are paying towards that particular school's playground. I personally agree in the principle of that CPA money should be used for playgrounds. I'm bringing that up as a point in that the volume, they're raising $10,000, $20,000, and now they have equipment, right, for a playground. Maybe not everything is up to par of ADA, right, but equipment was in the $20,000, $30,000 range, and now we're seeing $1 million, sticker shock. And so while, again, it's not really the $1 million that, we're not, this is the eligibility phase. But I think in this conversation, I think this requires a breakdown. I personally wouldn't be okay with moving forward with eligibility, saying yes on this, because it just feels like there's something else in there that may not be eligible. Or we have a better understanding, that it's really the bigger price is actually that over there.
A lot of what this comes down to is we're building a park. We're not just building a playground. We're building a park. And there's a lot of things that factor into that. If it's not going to cover ADA walkways, we need a way to get to the playground. So, that's gonna be a problem for us. The other thing, I could sit here and throw terms at you all night about tree equity and environmental justice and how we should be providing an atmosphere with shade and benches, and that's all part of this. And if I thought that throwing the designs in tonight would have helped you, I would have done that so you could see that. But if you want to take time to mull it over and I come back next month and bring those plans, I'm willing to do that, whatever satisfies the committee.
Gail, did you have something?
Well, yeah, just a comment more than a question. When we started this whole process with the playgrounds, I remember bringing up, and we had a conversation about taking all the playgrounds and the parks in totality and looking at them, so hence the survey was done. Is there any plan to do that in the construction aspect of it as well, instead of piecemealing this little playground and that little playground, maybe a capital project that the town takes on? And
Well, we've been asking for that for 20 years, and
because obviously, you know, this.
I mean, we really cut corners to redo Dean Park, and if I had a different avenue to go, I would have spent $1 million there. It's our most used park. We worked with the money we had, which was probably it was no more than $350,000. We added a few new features to old equipment, but the bones of it are still the original equipment, which is aged. We do feel that it'll get us further into the future and that these other things can come first.
CPA.
So I don't think, so we're looking at total tear downs. We're not
Right.
looking at, just adding something here and there. I mean, I can tell you these development playgrounds, when the developer was putting the neighborhoods in, they put these playgrounds in. It was a requirement of the town. I believe it was like a swing set, some sort of slide, and a climber.
Right.
And everything was done with sand, which you can't use anymore. Pea stone, can't use anymore. The wood chips, again, is a Massachusetts issue. When I go to safety classes for the playgrounds, all the other states sit there and say, oh yeah, wood chips, we have them, they're great. And then the Mass Access Board says, no, it's not great. You can't wheel through it, it's just not, it's not what we need. So, would I love a different option? Sure.
Well,
I
'cause
would.
I
I'd love to
see a
build 4
problem,
playgrounds for
Kevin.
the price of this, but
All right, because I see a problem. I think, you know, CPA is a wonderful funding source for projects, but we don't have those kind of funds to fund all this. So it has to be approached in a different manner. We can supplement, but certainly can't, I don't think we can do the whole project, like would be wonderful to be able to do that, but we don't have those kinds of funds. So where do you draw the line? And, you know, Arrowwood, the work that you've done to bring this forward is terrific, but there's a lot of other parcels that it's almost an equity issue now, you know, it's like,
It's a town issue.
it's a town issue, right?
Definitely a whole town issue.
Absolutely, so.
And I feel like because this was the only way to get through this avenue for a playground, then this is the only way that I was gonna
I
do it.
agree, that's why I have
I feel like being
difficulty with this
penalized
one.
or like putting a front to say, sorry, we're not gonna do it because we're gonna deal with all the other playgrounds first. I don't know, to me, just like Kevin, it's like, what is that, another 15 years of people in politics and spending money on playgrounds for a bunch of people that only like a bunch of families will care about, like, and they're like, oh, how about the school? Everyone can just go to the new school instead. I mean, I know all the problems that I've seen that the town is going through now, so I just feel like this was like the only avenue, other than delay so
Does the
many years.
construction
Three
have to
hands
be
up.
done all at once, or can it be phased? You know, when you do a project like Arrowwood, you go at it and finish it?
I have to look at things from the town angle, and if you don't do it all the first time, you're never coming back to it.
Okay,
Uh,
so it's not,
It really does have to be all at once. I mean, could we do the play pieces and the surfacing in one step and then the rest of the park stuff separately, you could. Will we? That's.
You know, like if you
that's-
did all
that's a
the
tough
same
question on my
process on
end.
all of them at once and then come back a second round. I don't.
So what we can't solve tonight is generations of
Neglect.
No, I-
neglect or different priorities. Kathy, you had your hand up, and Mo, you both had your hand
No,
up.
Kathy did first.
I thought you did, so thank you. I would agree in theory that playgrounds are eligible, so I would vote in favor of eligibility, but I do feel as if we need a breakdown of every single thing, because I feel like within that $1 million, there's things that aren't gonna be eligible. So in theory, I would vote to move forward on this. I do think that, yes, there may be the parks that were ranked 1, 2, 3, but they didn't have a neighborhood person that put together a proposition. So I don't feel like we need to worry about that, in my opinion.
No.
Right, Kevin, I don't want to give you the impression that I'm against this, or I don't want you to
No, I
spend
don't.
money.
I don't.
No, I want you to know, I was happy that CPA passed because we finally would be able to get money for parks, because for the whole time I was on the board, we appropriated pretty much nothing. Bare minimum, right? So I support using CPA money for that, and I don't really have a problem if we have the money and nobody else is coming forward, in particular of anything. If we have the money and we think, if this committee thinks that this is a worthwhile project, that we should put the $1 million, I have no problem with that. I just think, and it goes back to a discussion I had with Jason a couple of years ago when this first got passed, is that if I'm gonna vote to recommend something, I'd like to know how it fits into your overall plan. You know what I mean? Whatever your plan is, I mean, you, the Parks Commission, decide it, but to vote on something and know there's other needs out there that you would come forward with, you just mentioned Edgemere, it'd be nice for us to at least know what the plan is. You know what I mean? So, for eligibility, yeah, it's a playground. I got a little ahead of myself. The next discussion's gotta be about the particulars of it. But the other thing we need to consider is, and you might wanna consider, the CPA money, if we said we were gonna allocate $200,000 a year for parks to be able to borrow to do 8 parks and make a payment of $200,000 a year for 10 years or 20 years, whatever you're allowed to do, that might make more sense
Right.
than doing this and paying $1 million on just this one project where we could, and I've talked to Kevin about this before, it doesn't have anything to do with CPA, but if you could fund, and towns do it, if you fund a certain amount of money and say, every year, we're gonna pay $200,000. And that's gonna, whatever $200,000 will get us in the bond market. And then he's got whatever amount of money that you can get for $200,000. Now, probably not a whole lot, but you still get more. And so you're gonna get $1 million worth of project for this project, plus have more, and you're only spending $200,000 a year. You're gonna pay it, but you come out ahead when you do it that way. So I'm 100% behind you. That's why when we were doing ARPA money, I would have given you even more than what you got. So I agree with you, because I can tell you, almost 30 years ago, when we had a meeting about parks and open space on the Board of Selectmen, we said then that we weren't spending enough money on parks and recreation. So I'm with you. I'm with you, and I support you. I have to see the big picture. So eligibility, yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I just don't want it to be a knee-jerk and then say yes or no without at least discussing possibilities, that's all.
Jason?
I agree that strategizing on like the bigger picture is really going to be helpful for us, for everyone to know, like, hey, I can get efficiencies and getting more projects done at the same time. I think that is worthwhile discussion. But I think I also want to point out for sure that $1 million is an entire budget for the year. All categories. Actually, about $1.1 million. So I hope it's not seen as, well, it's just this one project. It's the entire year. That means even we have to allocate 10% in each of the other categories as well. So it's not really 1 million, it's somewhere about,
750,
Seven.
770.
yeah.
Well, whatever, but.
So, but the point is that if we look at it this perspective, say, well, it's just, we have an advocate and we have a design, and it's only $1 million. Well, then we're going to be doing what? There's 11 school grounds here, right? 11 projects. We might as well just be done for the next 11 years.
Actually, it's more than that, but yeah.
Okay, right? So that's it, right? That's like we can just pack our bags, housing authority, buy historic commission, buy
Sorry, guys.
parks for the next 11 years,
That's why a
right?
bigger
Sorry,
plan
guys.
is important, to put together a bigger plan, and, like you say, if you can borrow the money and we fund that, I think that would be a very logical thing to do, because it would get more done in a quicker amount of time. The amount the parks are used, I mean, recreation in this town is huge, so it's an important quality of living in Shrewsbury.
Yeah, I go to other towns.
Yeah.
Because it's, I mean, Jordan Pond, I'm like, it's, go to other towns.
I just want to see,
Like,
I just want to see a plan
Yeah.
that's feasible.
So there's absolutely an interest in learning a lot more about this project. In details, we can see more detail in the budget. Maybe there is an alternative source for a particular line item that, if we put our heads together, we might think of. But do we have enough information tonight to decide eligibility?
Yes.
If so, would someone care to make a motion?
No, I don't think so, because right, again, it says, the project consists of the replacement of the current playground as well as resurfacing and repainting the existing basketball court. So we know that maintenance is not covered. Right, maintenance is non-eligible.
Yes.
Well,
Right, so what part of that million is maintenance?
we're not doing that. That's what we just had discussion about. We're not doing that tonight. We're just saying, is the playground renovation eligible? Yes.
Okay,
Your narrative
Sure.
doesn't quite match what you're asking. I mean, what we're trying to decide is if the playground,
Is
No, I
it
mean,
eligible?
If
we
you're-
can
if you're
say that
saying
it's
that-
eligible today, but there may be things in there like painting is maintenance, that's not eligible. So certainly going forward, we would need more, or not, the whole $1 million budget may not actually be eligible.
We have the details of it, because,
Well, we don't have,
Right.
we don't have it right now, and it's
We're
not really,
Yeah.
Down.
that's not the question right now.
Okay.
all right, can I just clarify my
Right,
point?
you're saying painting,
May I-
resurfacing.
Yep.
I'm gonna restate my
That's the minor part, honestly.
piece about it. I believe that we should still go forward. I think there's enough elements there to say it's eligible. But obviously, there's concerns that we have already clearly articulated in terms of prioritization and breakdown of the scope of work. You already have a design document. It'd be great to see that. So I revised my statement. I think I will vote to say this is eligible.
So is there a motion to determine
So
if
moved.
this is eligible?
Second.
Is there a second?
No, he just said.
That was
Yes.
me. He made a motion, I said second.
Well, tough. Then all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? So we have determined the Arrowwood Playground project is eligible, but we do ask that you come back with the specifics of the project, because we do think that there may be some elements that may not be
Absolutely.
eligible for CPC funding.
I know, I couldn't even really see, like, the design, so there were some things I was like, I don't think I want that, so I actually was saying to him, I was like, when are we gonna meet with Mariana so I can see this design? So, I mean, when I got the document myself, so, I mean, there could be things that could be eliminated and adjusted and altered for cash and money and replaced instead of the mats and mulch, maybe we can do something else in the area or whatever, so.
And if
Things
it's
to be
helpful,
adjusted.
on the CPC website, there is more information about what sorts of things are eligible and not, and that might help guide you in preparing your funding application.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate
You
you
want,
coming
do
and
you want any of
discussing
that
this with us.
information that I do have already sent to you ahead of time. Do you just want it
Yes.
Ahead of time is
If you
better.
send it, if you send it to
emailed
me,
to everyone? And
That would be helpful.
I know it's
I'm
easy.
sorry if you
Through
felt
Chris.
like I put you on the hot seat. I didn't mean to.
That's all right, I'm used to it.
I'm with you.
me and
PA
Louis.
is my life. It's really overtaken my job, and, yeah, I should be getting the 5%. But anyway,
Evan, you're,
thank you.
you're worth way more than that.
Yeah.
Really?
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Is that 5% of a million?
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, folks. All right, so back to 4B. Review and vote to issue draft award letters and funding agreements for projects approved at the 2024 May town meeting.
Thank you. So I drafted a number of letters in our standard format in terms of the award letters and funding agreements for those projects. We did receive some notes on edits over the weekend, primarily just missing commas or capitalization, and one adjustment of wording. I'd missed a portion of a sentence in a copy and paste, so, but nothing substantive.
Can I move that we approve this?
No,
Has everyone had an opportunity to look at these? Are there any other changes,
Well,
questions? Jason?
I have questions. Is this similar to what we used last year?
Identical.
Identical.
Well, adjusted the dates to
Okay.
reflect.
All right.
So it's a 2-year sunset of 2026.
So actually, some of our previous projects have fallen a bit short on the reporting part of their letter from last year. Do we agree that quarterly reports are adequate? And that is every 3 months,
Auto is enough.
Especially if we actually get them. So if you are all comfortable with the letter, is there a motion to approve it?
So moved.
A second?
Second. Yep, that's okay.
All in
You can
favor?
have that one, Kath.
Aye.
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 Opposed? Let's run with that letter, Mr. McGoldrick.
Thank you.
All right, then next, review and vote to adopt a logo.
Yeah, so this is somewhat tied to the next item on our agenda, but part of that is we do need to adopt a logo. This will then be used in tandem with the town seal to provide a design for signage. We've come up with, I believe there's 2 options that were uploaded. There's a couple different formats. So there's a couple of logos for the committee to review and, if they so choose, vote to adopt to use moving forward. And we'll use that as letterhead and all the other manner of items for formalizing documents.
We're not, can, Deb,
Yes.
Kath. Was one of those logos had color on it? Or was that for a sign?
No, yeah, they both had color options, I believe.
The ones I was looking at were black and white, and then I saw one that had color on it. Good.
There's one that it came in a couple of different versions. One, it was black and white, and it also was in color.
Okay.
Perhaps we,
And then Martha had, yes,
perhaps we could put them up on the screen so we can all see them.
that would be great.
Thank you.
Martha had weighed in on which one she liked.
I have her message here.
01.
It's about 85 degrees in here.
And for the record, congratulations to Martha on another grandchild. That's why she's not with us tonight. Happy news.
So this is one option, the Shrewsbury MA Community Preservation Committee. These are in the standard Shrewsbury format colors.
Do you want us to,
If I can-
Where's the gold?
Got it.
how we, what's the plan for this? Do you want us to tell you which one we want, or are we gonna just, I don't think we need to discuss each.
Weigh in. I mean, Chris has come up with these if we like them. If you don't like them, send them back to the drawing board.
I think we can pick one of these.
I'd like to know what the, how the Sunshine was thinking of formatting it on the sign, if it's being used with the town logo as well, like, how is it being arranged on the sign?
So they'll provide a design,
Okay.
that'll be up to them and.
Because that
we
might
can-
dictate whether we do a horizontal or a circular. The town seal is circular, obviously.
Right.
So,
Do we want the town seal with, I mean, this is a great-looking logo, but that would probably look kind of silly sitting opposite the town seal.
do we need the town seal?
That's what I'm wondering. Do we need
I mean,
it
this
for
is a CPA.
CPC things? I don't know that we do. Is there a town-wide style manual?
There is, yep.
And what would that say about committees using their own logos or something separate? Are there rules that we need to adhere to?
No, you can have your own logo.
Are all these for one purpose? I mean, like the ones you got up there right now almost looks like a letterhead.
No, we can certainly adjust them to meet whatever need that we need.
Well,
This
would
is-
you have one for letterhead, one for a sign, and one for whatever other reason?
My preference
Yes.
would be the one logo that we use in a variety of manners. And maybe it's not always in color, but
True, but I'm saying if you look at the logo, well, you just switched it. It prefaced it by saying from the office of. That, to me, that's a little for a letterhead.
yeah,
And it could be the same logo, but it's got a little bit different wording.
right.
That's all.
And I,
But yes,
so I personally like the one that's, I mean, I think we'll see it in black and white and in color, so I do like the
Yeah.
color side of it. And obviously, this one looks very similar to the Parks Playground, which is nice. I like that a lot as well. But I think there's two things that would make it unique to us, and that is, if you could flip over to the color one, please. So, Gail, back me up on this. We spent time on a color palette that we see throughout the community preservation plan itself in all our documents. I'm recommending that we use the same four colors
Right.
that were used there.
I like that.
It's the,
Good
it's the
idea.
orange, the green, the blue, and I think a purple housing, right? So if we borrow that. The next design element piece to it is swapping out, I'm recommending swapping out probably the bench. Because I think we're not really getting the history represented. I think the housing, I think people understand as multiple housing, it's, right, housing aspect. I don't think we get I don't think we're missing the historic element to that. So
Right.
whether that was
Because
like a
you've got
colonial
three that
home
are
or,
recreation
Yeah.
and outdoor space.
Yeah.
so I think, yeah, I think we need a historical element to replace one of those.
Point.
You had one, Chris, that with the wording, with the first letters being bold, I would suggest that they were even larger, so CPA shows up big.
Either that or a darker color.
I think my opinion is I'd like all the lettering in bold so it stands out.
Yeah, but the size of the first letter, like the C and the P and the A, if they were
A
larger,
little bit larger, yeah.
It does seem we're all leaning towards this one with some tweaks.
Yes.
So
Should be.
perhaps,
It's on the font, because there's some with the bold as
The
well.
Yeah.
font that you had up before, that one, yes, that one.
Is that what playgrounds use?
Hmm?
Do you have to know which one playground used?
For this font, I'm not sure.
Gail is our resident artist. Gail, what do you think?
I don't think the
we wanna
wording
ma-
shows up very well, you know, from a distance. If we're seeing this from the road, the images are nice, but the
Yeah.
size of the letters seems small to
How
me.
big is it?
Huh?
How big is it gonna be?
Well, if we were to
Generally.
create a
Well, the sign
sign,
is 18 by 24, so
It
it's not gonna be
depends
very
upon the
big.
material that's being used on, where it's just,
if we're creating a sign, presumably about the size of a campaign sign, it could have the logo, but then the words could, you know, it wouldn't, I think you'd go with not just the logo, but have the logo, and then the words, you know,
Right,
your
what
community
else?
preservation
Is
dollars at work, or something like that,
Yeah.
so the words would be easier
Well,
to see.
there's not a whole lot of room on an 18 by 24 sign, so the logo's not.
Is
if we have
that
both
the only
logos-
thing that's going on a sign if it's like
I would think
campaign
not.
sign?
What takes up that whole screen?
What?
That screen is probably, what, 28 by 22 maybe? So 18 by 24 is almost the screen.
so this is, I mentioned the signage because that's part of us to get a design from Sunshine Sign. This would just be, we're just looking to adopt a logo. It would be used on different materials.
She was talking what size sign it's gonna be. That TV screen is probably 28 by 20 is what I'm saying.
If we choose a logo, a sign company, whomever we choose, can certainly find a way to make our logo visible, because it would also, I would assume, have words on it as well, some words.
Yeah, you would have to have, I mean, nobody would know
I
what
said,
that
but
is.
what?
Yeah,
I think there's enough room, white space in that now that probably should make the lettering bigger. Just, you don't
Yeah.
have to make the sign bigger. You can-
no, just,
Would it even, could you make it an oval sign? In terms of spreading it out this way, this way, to me, the community preservation doesn't go this way, it's gonna go from 10 till 2, let's say. It'll be a little bit flatter, but still curved. If the sign was more oval, that's all.
What? Let's not overthink this. It's a
Well-
sign.
It's a sign, Mo, but when we first did that, and I started going around looking at signs, and I think I mentioned this, there's a walk-up sign and a drive-by sign. These are drive-by signs, and you're gonna put this down on Grove Street, and you're gonna go by at 30 miles an hour, you're not gonna read that sign. You're not gonna read that sign, you got one second or less to look at it.
But what you might see is CPC funds at work. You might be able to read words like that driving by, if they're big
CPC
enough.
funds is-
Is this gonna be a side of the name of the project? on the sign?
We,
it's a temporary
So-
sign,
this,
isn't
Right,
the
it?
but-
Like
intent
while it's
right now
So-
under
is
so-
construction.
create temporary signage that we will put by projects in progress, so that when people see their CPC dollars at work,
Yeah, but if,
that-
like if it said, whatever, Arrowwood Park renovation, and that was next to it, it's fine. That's the way every construction
Yeah.
project sign is. Those are in there to remind you
Right.
who's funding it. It's fine.
If we changed, put in a historic aspect and maybe make those a little bolder even, I'm looking at the town seal, because they're kind of fine lined, and that might disappear a little bit. You almost have to, I like the logo, but if, for a sign, it might have to be a little bit bolder. And the lettering bigger. I mean, it's all in proportion, you know, you look at the town seal and look at the size, you know, how the letters fill up that space. It fills up the space, but because there's not a frame around it, it looks a little skimpy.
Go on Vistaprint and play with it. You can,
But
It's not my design, I won't be editing it.
I like the round logo better than the horizontal.
do you think you could ask for those changes and show it to us again next month?
Yeah,
That would be great.
got a direct line to the artist.
We can talk about signs. I had a question about
I
the,
don't like this one, though.
if we're, what?
You don't like this one though, right?
No.
I
No.
like that one, except the CPC has to be either bigger or a darker color, but I like it.
All right, my feelings are not hurt. I have a competition going.
Just ruminated.
So, so is there clarity on which design to, just that one design to move forward to tweak and not
I
have
believe this
five
is the
design?
one you want tweaked.
What would you put in for historical element?
I don't know.
How about an outline of the monument on the common?
Yes,
Yeah,
The what?
yes.
good,
Obelisk.
Yeah.
Or
Yep.
or the schoolhouse.
the Boston
Oh, monument,
Post.
Instead of the
yeah.
bench?
No,
Like that.
no, the war memorial.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good, good idea.
There you go.
There you are. I'm thinking all the time.
Sitting in the corner thinking all day.
And those should be Asian longhorn beetle-resistant trees too.
I have a list.
So why don't we wait and vote on the logo when those changes have been made? Make that decision on it.
Okay.
That would be terrific, thank you. I had a question about the sign quote. What is Sunshine Signs proposing to make these signs out of?
Are we moving on to that
That
agenda item?
price?
Okay, so we are officially tabling C for
Yes,
further
we'll
study.
vote on the logo when it has changes.
For final approval.
So thank you. So the next item is reviewing the signage for Sunshine Sign. So we did reach out to Sunshine Sign in terms of a bulk pricing for 10 aluminum signs to be used for that temporary signage. It also includes that they would design what that sign looks like, provide it to us as a proof. We would then review it, approve it, and send it back to them for actual creation
Is
of
the
those
sign
signs.
itself aluminum or just the frame?
10 aluminum signs inserted into black aluminum frames. So they'd be fairly durable, which is good for using them longer term. Typically, so this is a Sunshine Sign we've used. My understanding is DPW uses them fairly frequently in terms of their allocations. I'm happy to move forward. You know, according to procurement, we can move forward with this quote as is. We're under all those thresholds. If we'd like, we can use this as our baseline, our low bid, if you will, and we can send it out to try to collect additional quotes if the committee would like to, and try to beat that number.
How much are those?
So the all-in price for the design and development of the 10 signs is $1,714.50.
So $170 a piece?
Double-sided.
How big?
Correct. Double-sided. They are 18 by 24 and 3 millimeters thick.
Well,
Yard sign.
Sunshine Signs does great work. They did a wonderful
they-
thermometer for the turf project, and it looked great.
they do.
But that does seem steep.
How are you gonna put the signs up? Are you gonna put them up like campaign signs like this? Or are you gonna put them like everybody else does in front of a project like this? And that faces the street, because if you are, you don't need double-sided signs. You just save some money. If you were doing campaign signs, you want them this way, but you want them for project, put them like that, just do one side. It faces forward.
And how do they go in the ground? Are they like open house signs that you're gonna,
Eh,
Oh, I think they're just a metal frame with like legs
But it
and
doesn't
stick
sound
in the
like it's-
ground.
just,
Oh,
it's not an
'cause
H
I asked-
frame?
No,
So I asked about the price only because, thinking of campaign signs, Vistaprint, a standard campaign sign, which are durable, are $24 each. And the skinny metal frames are $350 each.
That's,
I mean, I would think
The
these would be
signs-
indestructible at $170 each.
Those signs, those corrugated signs, they last forever.
They do.
I used them for 4 different campaigns, and they look just as good on
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if we need something quite as durable, strong, because they are only going to be, they're temporary. And if we, once
Some of
they
our
happen to, we
projects
can
last
replace
a long-
it.
Yeah, some of them last a long time, though, the projects. So I think that the metal frame is important myself, but double-sided, maybe not. You know, that the whole corrugated thing is surrounded by that metal frame, so it's sturdy.
I have a
Campaign
sign in my front
signs-
yard that is, it's made like a campaign sign. It's got a sentiment that my family wanted, and it's been in our yard for 4 years now. It got buried in a snowbank once.
Yeah?
Still looks great.
How long are we gonna have this up? I'm serious, so if
I
we're gonna,
really, I think the intent is
6
when a
months?
project breaks ground and something's happening, we want to put the sign out there, but it's not going to be there
It-
in perpetuity. It's meant to draw attention to something starting.
I'm not suggesting we do something this big, but those banners that we use for the Yuletide thing, those things cost like $70 a piece, and they were really good. Somebody's just gotta put the stakes in the ground. They don't have to be that big. You did them smaller, you could save money, they last forever. I'll put them in the ground, I did the other ones, I can do those. Serious, I mean, you could make it
It
bigger.
would be great to have a big project that we get a big banner, you know, with something, when we're
$1 million
building
playground, we
housing.
can get a big.
And we get, we've got.
No, seriously,
fencing
like,
around
like
it.
3 by 6, put up something like that, people notice it.
Chris,
And it'd be cheap, because you use that, material that the wind can go through. It's up to you if you want. Yeah. Don't you think the metal ones get banged around a lot, Kathy?
Absolutely, and they're heavy, and they fall over because they don't go in the ground, particularly in a construction site.
Or they're a problem when you hit a rock.
Yeah.
Chris,
Yeah, so the intent of these signs is to be very generic. It's not going to be project-specific. These are simply to go out while a project is proposed or under construction. Probably, so this would be managed by staff, so we would be going out with our regular site visit and placing the signs in, likely keeping them up for the duration of the project construction. We do still reserve in those funding agreements that were just signed, we do reserve the right to require any project to add additional signage. Certainly, we would want to be commensurate with the scale of the project. That's something we may want to look at in the future as these projects come in, is if we recommend that they include that in their budget amount for the funding agreement. But, so those larger signs, similar to what you see like for construction sites that has the project-specific information, we would be able to require those, or if we wanted a more permanent, the plaques, we had looked at those, and I did get a quote for those, and,
I think for now is, what do we want for a temporary sign while things are under construction or beginning happening? Get that first, is Kathy.
I am thinking more like, what I had envisioned for this was more of a campaign sign on an H-frame that goes on the ground during the project. And then once the project is complete, something more permanent that stays at the site. So, like the campaign signs, again, like $24 or, but I think the open house signs in the metal frame, I have those, they're heavy and they're hard to use and they don't go in the ground.
They do with a
They sit on top of the ground
sledgehammer.
and then wind comes and knocks them over. And those are double-sided, and I can tell you exactly how much they cost.
I think my original thought was it's like a campaign sign, and we
Camp-
put
that's
those
what I was
H-frames in the ground, they're good. And if we're driving by and we see it blow over, we can pull over and pick it up.
And I think, and they might not survive. It's a big project, they get hit by something, so a cheaper sign, we use 10, when we need 10 more, we buy 10 more, rather than, I think 171's a lot. And more than we need for,
Yeah. I don't want to overbuy. I want it to look good, but I also am very cognizant that we are stewards of these funds, and we've been good
Campaign
stewards so
sign-
far. I want us
a
to
campaign
continue to be.
Type, the corrugated, for what they cost, if they get banged up, you're not losing a lot of money. You can do what you want, but I would either do a campaign sign or I'd get one of those other
I'm-
things.
Poor Chris.
I am beholden to what the
Back to what he
committee
wants.
wants.
So, although at those, the open house signs that open up like this and sit double-sided, I can get them for $90, so 171 is still more. You know,
How do you hold them in the ground?
they don't stay on the
No.
ground, that's the problem with the open house signs that are
They're a
metal
sandwich
frame.
board.
What?
No, they're a sandwich board.
Yeah, it's
Well,
like
I
a
can,
sandwich board.
like, I
I
mean,
don't think that's what this is, though.
I can't pick with a metal frame around it.
You haven't seen them? It's like a metal frame and the things, right, and it's like a, like this.
Okay.
And the pictures in there. But I agree, if we can get them cheaper, just a regular sign, then fine, but then the question is, if it's that inexpensive, a campaign sign, then we might as well do them both sides.
Yeah,
So you have the versatility.
yeah, because you
Right,
don't save a whole lot of money just
right,
on one side.
exactly.
Yeah, I personally would feel better about spending these funds on a less
Yeah.
expensive, sign that I think would be durable enough for our project, for our purposes.
You know what?
No, it's worth
Worst that can
it.
And if
happen
it turns
is
out we're
Give it a
wrong,
try.
spend a
yeah.
little bit of money.
Right.
If you find out they don't hold up and
Right.
they're not worth it, then you could do the other ones, but I
Yeah,
think they
start
will.
small.
I agree.
I have a garage full of campaign signs that I saving for people, so, no, seriously,
We all have a few
those
from them.
corrugated signs last.
They do.
Yeah, that plastic corrugated.
I think I have the original 8 I bought the first time I ran for town meeting. Remember, one of my daughters just asked for one to furnish her off-campus apartment with.
Getting off
Really?
subject,
That's very
but
sweet.
I have from my first campaign, the cardboard ones we used to use that we put on ferring. You'd have to make this T stand on ferring and put them on.
Potato
I still got one in my closet that I never used.
So I think, it looks like the bottom line is we'd like to explore some less expensive for the temporary, so it's just like this, your Community Preservation Act dollars that work.
Okay.
Chris,
Those are hard to get in the ground.
is the 179 getting you that size?
Yeah, probably.
Oh, that's different.
Yeah, this was the example that was
I
provided.
have to tell you,
And Sean-
those are gonna be hard to bang in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They really are. and
Sledgehammer to
you're
get
gonna
that in.
we both have experience with those. You bang those corners in, and you're not into, relatively, not soft earth, but you hit a rock or something like that, you're gonna bend the corners, you're gonna get wrecked. But that's not bad, for that size sign, that's not a bad price.
I do
I'll get the
wonder if
assistant
something like
first,
that is a
the
little bit
director
more
bar.
of a target of the curious kid
Old
that
post
climbs
digger
on it.
out.
No, they pretty much leave the campaign signs alone for the most part. But something like that, I know
Well,
some small
campaign sign's
people
not
who
gonna be as
try to
big as
climb it.
that.
No, but they do the job.
Yeah. Put 4 of them in a row on the lot. You find some public property that nobody knows who owns and you put them on there.
You know,
Be
campaign.
straight
So-
forward.
So we're
You
gonna,
guys, honest to
do we
God.
need a motion, or
somebody
we
who
just
used
tell
to do
Chris
that.
to
I
go
think,
with the campaign
no,
sign?
we have to vote. I think the consensus is we'd like to look at a proposal for a less expensive, simpler sign.
Yeah.
Just the H-frame and
Yeah.
corrugated
Yeah,
material.
I just found it quickly when I looked at Vistaprint earlier today, because that's who made my signs a long time ago.
Do you want me to ask Sunshine Sign for that proposal?
Sure, if they do that, and we'll compare that to something like Vistaprint and see, and if Vistaprint works for the Celtics, it ought to work for us. But we'll
I
see
would
which
ra-
makes more sense,
I would rather use a local company than someone.
I would too.
Right, personally.
but not at $170 a sign.
Right,
Yeah.
The
exactly.
sunshine was from Grafton, I think.
It may be appropriate to tell them that we were looking at the less expensive, and we'd really like to be closer in that price range if they could be.
Yeah, I think they were being responsive to the example I
Close enough.
provided, which
Great,
I had misunderstood, so, yep.
then we'll do that, thank you. So then, our next discussion items, those are our action items. And it's the annual community preservation plan updates. Everyone has had opportunity to submit updates. Chris, I know that you did reach out to boards within the community to see if they had input. Thank you for doing that. Mo, you've got something on the tip of your,
No, I read it, I liked it.
Are there any other changes or updates anyone wishes to make?
Well, the last time I looked at it, and this was a couple days ago, that page 14 is still a problem with that, that chart. And also the quote about the, make sure that the correction that I gave you for the quote on the number of acreage, amount of acreage in chapter lands, it's not 400 acres, it's more like 300. The numbers in my little list that I put in the, somewhere in the shared drive. And was there anything else, Gail?
I'm drawing a blank.
Yeah, that chart, I have a feeling that the assessor's office would be really good at that.
Yeah, I apologize that you had mentioned that a couple times and I
Yeah, okay.
failed to update it.
And
Oh, and you read on the letter at the beginning of it, the semicolon is still on page 2.
Semicolon.
After Carl's name, you have Carl Nelson, comma, Parks, and semicolon, Cemetery Commission. I think that semicolon does not need to be there.
The picture of the town of Boylston probably should be changed to ours.
Everybody's name spelled right?
Pardon me?
Everybody's name spelled right?
I think so.
And-
Looks correct to me. John, is Sigilnik spelled correctly? I think it is, but you're the expert.
I'm looking for it,
It's page 2.
and I get the wrong document. Oh, right here. I don't have page 2.
And actually, if you're editing the letter, I don't know why I didn't think of this before. The header says letter to Shrewsbury, and then it says dear Shrewsbury neighbors.
Yep.
Do we need both Shrewsburys? If it's a letter to Shrewsbury, can we
Oh,
just say dear
never mind.
neighbors?
I got it. Yeah, I'm spelled right. When is this going to be published?
Pardon me?
When is this going to be published?
As soon as we vote on it.
Oh, okay.
Do we have feedback from the 5 required boards? That includes a
Who's gonna
select
okay
board.
it?
Sorry?
Who's going to okay it?
So,
Needs.
each of the, so I'm going to read the bylaw. Community Preservation Committee shall study the needs and possibilities and resources of the town regarding community preservation. The committee shall consult with existing municipal boards, including the Conservation Commission.
Oh, I thought you meant
Historic
had to proof this.
No. Well, it's leading into that is getting their feedback. Planning board, the select board, and Parks and Commission, Cemetery Commission, and the Housing Authority. So their feedback rolls into the heat map. That heat map then rolls into the goals that we put in each of those sections. So if anything bubbled up to be like, oh, we have something significant that came up, then we would reconsider our goal, through that process. So this is not only just, grammatical error, checks and, adding a digit to a count of housing, or land, but this is also feedback from the existing committees. So are all in? Planning, did you guys discuss?
So no, so the letter went out, the email went out, a few days, so this meeting falls right after planning board in the month. So we had the planning board, May meeting when that went out. The email, I did email it seeking individual comments back. Certainly could put this on the next agenda, but the committee had stressed that they really wanted to at least review at this meeting we were at. The Council on Aging has submitted comments back via individual comment. They also have not had a chance to convene yet.
So I think
May be sufficient for us.
I mean, I think we were here and let's go through any changes that have been proposed, but in terms of the heat, like, this is in our bylaw, like, we have to have the feedback from these groups. So if that means we leave the plan unapproved, it leaves it unapproved.
It makes sense. I don't think it would be inappropriate that could be one of our first acts in the new fiscal year, is to approve the plan if we don't have that information, and it potentially could change something that's in here.
Now, I seem to recall that Martha said that the Conservation Commission had no changes. Do you recall that, or am I hallucinating?
Don't recall.
Well, I said even if there was no changes, it should be discussed formally in their committee and said, we have no changes to propose. We have no resources, opportunities, and possibility, it needs.
Well,
There needs to be a formal check-in, each of those committees, each of the representatives, so like Housing Commission, I'm sorry, Housing
Committee
Authority.
addressed it at their April meeting.
Okay,
We have done it.
and that feedback has gone to the spreadsheet.
I think so. If you don't have it for me, let me know, but I think so.
Okay, yeah.
Okay,
In conservation, I
Historic?
heard them talk about it, and historical, we talked about it too. I think there was one little, there was a change in the list, but then of the Beal School, but then we put it back on.
okay.
That was the only.
So formally, formally done in your open meetings,
Right.
planning.
Yes.
Are you familiar with, because I know you were out for some.
We didn't, I did those meetings remotely, we didn't talk about this.
So again, we had the meeting when
So
the
it'll
call
come.
went out, so we can put it on the June agenda.
Okay, so formally do it. Oh, in June, later this month,
Third.
so we'll have a July
Third.
meeting.
What about Parks and Rec?
Sorry,
Carl?
the 6th. So it'll be this Thursday that they would
Yeah,
review.
you can add that to our agenda, right?
Yeah.
Do you control parks and the agenda? No. Carl, we need Carl.
Carl?
So let's put out a last call to those committees that we haven't heard from, or we're unsure if they understand we need them to reply, even if it's to say no change, nothing. Let's put out a last call to them, and then we will approve it, look at any final spacing, errant semicolons, and we'll approve this at our July meeting.
Okay, so the ones we need to hear from are planning, Parks and Rec, or what would it be?
Parks and Cemetery Commission.
Parks and Cemeteries?
And
And
Select Board.
Conservation?
No,
No.
I think they did it, but I don't, I remember hearing her talking at one of the meetings that I was watching. They
but
did,
I'm
but I don't know what
not
the outcome
certain.
was.
I'd rather Martha say it.
Yeah,
Okay, let's say Conservation
And Select Board.
and Select Board. Yes.
So we'd like to have feedback from other boards, but it's ultimately the must-haves are those 5. The 4 that are represented here, plus Select Board, which is, because it's in our bylaw. Section 2, duties, subsection 1. That's it.
Okay.
So,
But perhaps in that not-so-gentle reminder you sent Chris, you can remind them that per our bylaws, we must have their feedback before we can approve their plan, and that we wish to do so at our July meeting. So if they could respond forthwith.
Yeah, I can certainly send out another. Ultimately, I do think, and again, I do think that we want to be persistent in requesting for the updates. Ultimately, I think we've satisfied what our criteria are for that bylaw of trying to get comment. If we ultimately don't get comment back, that'd be unfortunate, but that's not uncommon. So, so again, we'll be persistent, but I think we've satisfied that. And that also doesn't preclude us from updating throughout the year. Bylaw is also very clear that it's a living document to be updated as needed, so.
Speaking of July, I hope that it's all your intent. Hopefully we'll be renominated by your committees and join us again.
We'll find out.
I was renominated on April, in May. I was not there, so I was reappointed.
You were
It's a lesson
volunteered.
for us all.
Never miss a meeting.
Yes. No, we should nominate Carl for something.
But he gets to
Speaking
not
of
be in there.
July, Chris did send out a proposed meeting dates for July going forward. I know you had some feedback about the July date. Do folks, would July 1st work? Are folks planning on not being here? Wouldn't be great to start a new fiscal year without a quorum.
I will not be available unless, if necessary, it could be, if it was remote, I could do that.
Does anyone else have issues with July 1?
We don't have any plans right now. Nope, I have nothing.
Wait, they have to stick to that, no plans,
I know.
4th of July week, that's it.
I think with the,
CPC meeting.
I think Friday is gonna be a problem.
Yeah, I
People
don't
leave,
think
they'll leave the
Friday.
following weekend in general.
Right.
So I can do the 1st.
I'm fine.
So I guess we'll go ahead with July. Let's see what we think. Now, you don't have dates for September and November.
Sorry, can I ask about July? Is it possible to open that up as a remote meeting?
The September one shouldn't be a problem.
I mean, to be able to, for me to dial, not that the meeting is held remotely, but rather have an option to dial in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
thanks.
September, first Monday in September is Labor Day.
So we won't be
Unless we
doing
wanna
that.
meet
It
on
would
Labor
seem
Day,
that the next one, there's a
we'll be back
conflict
on
with voting.
the second.
Which is the day
Calendar.
Unless we want to meet on Labor Day. Somebody's got to open the building.
But we can't meet on the 9th, because that's the day before election, right?
No,
Is that
the third is the day after Labor Day is the election.
Isn't it the
the third.
second Tuesday?
It's the first Tuesday.
In September, like John said, the first Monday is Labor Day. The second one, this room is unavailable. Do we want to try another day of the week, or do we go to the 16th of September?
Whatever you want.
Hold on, sorry.
Difference to me.
I think we need to be cognizant of of a fall town meeting to be able to get the
That will be in
eligibilities.
October.
Yes, but to get there, we have to get recommendations in, any eligibility, right? We already know one of our projects is gonna be coming back, right, for additional funding,
Yes.
right?
And
So-
Kevin did mention that he has another one that we'll have in July.
Yeah.
Can we vote, can we meet another day of the week? What days is this room available? Or do we just meet on the 9th, but somewhere else?
I would,
So it would be available on the 16th.
I really hate that police department.
training room,
Yes.
the way it's set up,
Oh, it's
just to be
awful.
particular.
Why not the ninth?
Is the library available?
Why not the ninth?
The note here says there's a conflict with voting setup. Is there a primary?
No, that's assuming the first Monday, that would be assuming we vote on the second. Or we meet on the second. Voting is the third.
Is it? Then is there any reason why we can't meet on the 9th? Chris?
Not that I'm aware of.
Then let's make that one the
In
9th.
terms of location, we could always, I can see if the library is available September 9th. If we do.
How about the police station?
I hate the police station.
But police station has the equipment, I mean, as awkward as it is, kind of like lengthwise, though, the equipment is already there.
We all hate it.
What?
We all hate it.
Oh, if you need a place to meet.
I know, but well,
In November, we will have greater difficulty because there is a conflict with voting setup. And if we could still meet on the 4th, but do it somewhere else. Otherwise, the 11th is Veterans Day. I don't know, town hall is open on the 11th.
That's
No.
Veterans Day.
Yeah,
holiday.
that's what I said.
Oh, I thought you said it's open.
Sorry.
Why wouldn't we just move that one back a couple days till like Wednesday, the 6th?
What's available?
School committee, oh,
Could we, is this room available?
Yeah, school committees are Wednesdays. Changing it to
Every week.
changing to somewhere else in the middle of the week, I think risks, like, we have a consistency with Mondays. I think we should try to stick with that.
Is there somewhere else we could be on Monday, November 4th?
This far out, we'll be able to find a location, whether it's the library, police station. I know we don't like the police station. I'll take that in consideration when trying to book a room. But I think we're just looking at dates at this point. We
Avenue
can-
Square.
Meeting location, we can always adjust if needed.
Yeah.
But I,
The police station isn't bad if you set the tables up
Right,
in
you had a
the
good
U.
suggestion about how
Yeah,
to do
we did that with the
differently.
300th anniversary meeting, and it worked fine. It was like this setup.
Yeah, maybe that'd be better,
Yeah, instead of a long line.
especially if we didn't have to have a lot of visuals. Would depend on what we would have, yeah.
September, we may well have people coming to speak to us about proposals, since that would be the meeting, it would be very close to town meeting. So if we could get the library and functioning room, but we're good with the dates. We'll have Chris work on the locations. But September will be the September 9th, November would be November 4th, and we're good with the rest of these dates as suggested.
Yes.
So far away.
Is there a motion to approve this calendar?
So moved.
Second?
second.
All in favor? The calendar is
Aye.
presented.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Then we'll work with this calendar. And that, right now, is there anything else that anyone feels we should discuss tonight? So that is what's on our agenda.
I'm sorry, can we just get for the notes, the two dates they were amending this? The September and the November dates?
The September
Only so I can
9th,
put it in my calendar before I,
September 9th,
Yep.
location to be determined,
Yep.
and November 4th,
November.
location to be determined.
Okay. So that fills in the blanks.
Okay.
Printed materials.
All right. If there is nothing else anyone wishes to discuss in this nice toasty warm room tonight, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And abstentions? That concludes our June 3rd meeting of the Community Preservation Committee. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.